Brock here from Rock Hill Farms. Today we're going to make a repair on my tractor. I had a different project that I wanted to be doing today, but I can't because I damaged my tractor making the last video. I also want to tell you about a new attachment I ordered for the tractor that should allow us to get a lot more work done. But first things first, I've got to fix what I messed up last time. So our last video was installing the Artillion third function diverter kit. I got everything done, but for the power source I hooked it to an extra battery I had laying around just to make sure it worked. I came out the next morning, I routed all the power wires, and I ran them up to the battery. Everything was done. All I had left to do was hook the power wires up to the terminals on the battery. So as I was finishing tightening up the second terminal and just about done with the project, my wrench slipped off and the end of it hit the hydraulic cooling unit. And I mean, I just barely hit it with the wrench. Didn't think anything of it. Finished tightening that up, closed it down, filmed the end of my video where I was demonstrating the hydraulic movements and how well it worked on the tractor. Shut the tractor off and looked, I had a big puddle underneath. I knew immediately that it happened when my wrench slipped and hit that coolant. Now, if I had been smart, I could have taken a piece of cardboard and just stuck it up in front of the radiator and that coolant unit. And that would have prevented anything like this from happening. So that's a lesson learned. The only good news in this situation is that I bought my tractor and all of my attachments from Heritage Tractor. That's our local John Deere dealership. They have 22 stores across Arkansas, Kansas, and Missouri, and they provide fantastic customer service. So it was, I don't know, 2 p.m. whenever I damaged that. And I called them up, told them what I needed. I was able to pick it up at 8 o'clock the next morning. So I was really happy, and that's one of the reasons I went with John Deere. I don't know what the dealerships are like in your area, but around here, the Heritage Tractor stores are known for always being able to get you what you need and for great customer service. I mean, if I have a repair going on, I can text directly to the manager who handles that project and get an answer as far as where we're at immediately. It was really nice that I'm only without the tractor for a half a day. I would have been already up and running, except I had a couple of other appointments this morning and I just decided to wait and do it after my crew was done in the shop. That gets me out of the weather and gives me a better work area. Alright, so let's jump in here and get the project done. The first thing I think I need to do is take the grapple off and get it out of the way so that I can get into the front of the tractor better. If this was any other type of a issue that I needed to fix in the engine compartment, I'd take the whole loader off. But I don't want to run my hydraulics enough to take the loader off and lose all that extra fluid. So I'm just going to manually pull the grapple off the front and work that way. One more note before I get started. I'm by no means a tractor mechanic. Not even sure what I'm doing. So if I mess anything up or do anything wrong, let me know in the comments so that anyone else who maybe makes this same repair later can benefit from, you know, what we all learned together. Okay, it's probably even hard to see, but the damaged fins are right there. Doesn't take much to create a leak, and I could have prevented that just by putting a piece of cardboard in here before I started working. Then the other positive to this is that when you put that in, it helps keep you from accidentally sparking out by having your tools touch across the battery post or from the positive to a ground or anything like that. So my original plan was to pull the battery out, but as I started to do that, I realized it's not going to easily pull out. There's not room in between this cooler here and the headlights. Basically, I'd either have to take the headlights out, take a front component out here, or remove the side panels. I have a feeling that maybe removing the side panels isn't that hard and that's the way to do it. But honestly, I don't have to have the battery out to do this. I just thought it'd free up a little more space, so I'm going to leave it in. So the only connection points on this are the hydraulic in, the hydraulic out, and these 4 tabs. Primarily, I should just have to remove the bolts out of these and disconnect the hydraulic lines at the bottom, but we'll see. And hopefully I can do that without dinging it again. So the top two nuts that hold this hydraulic cooler on here also hold another small cooler on here. I don't know if this is for the transmission or the engine oil or what this cools, because the radiator is behind it and then you've got the hydraulic fluid cooler. I mean, it wouldn't be that hard to get the manual out and find out, but off the top of my head, I'm not sure what this goes to. This other cooling unit that is in front of the hydraulic cooling unit is also attached to this reservoir right here. So I'll have to take that loose as well to pull those out of the way. These are just nuts that go onto a stud, so it's a little more convenient than bolts. I said the words you should never say, which is that this looks like a pretty simple or straightforward repair. So as soon as those words came out of my mouth, you know I'm going to have problems. Now I've only got 2 more nuts to take that loose, but once I take it loose, it's going to be harder to take the hydraulic lines off the bottom of it. So I'm going to go ahead and take those hydraulic lines off before the bottom 2 nuts. Well, my set only goes to 18 millimeters that I brought out here, and I think the standard, it goes to 7/8, and neither one of those is big enough, so I guess we'll just use a crescent wrench. And of course these connections for the hydraulic lines on the bottom of this are right up against the radiator, so try not to damage those fins as I do this. That's saying, like, if you find yourself in a hole, stop digging, so try not to break anything else. Alright, so now I've got those 2 lines off. I'm going to go ahead and take off the bottom 2 nuts that hold the cooler on. So I've got everything off of this. It should just pull right out. And there you go. I'm going to hold this up and see if you can see the damage. Not sure that it's going to show on the camera, but right next to my finger is where I dinged that. Okay, I'll try to be really careful lowering the new one down in. Now we'll reverse the process. I'll get some nuts onto this before trying to hook up the hydraulic, and hopefully that'll hold it still while I tighten them down. One question that I wanted to check on, and I thought I knew the answer to this, but I wanted to make sure that these hydraulic setups weren't anything like, say, a brake system on a car where you have to bleed out the air. So I called up the service department to make sure that taking this hydraulic cooler off wasn't going to cause me any type of an issue with needing to bleed these lines or anything like that. They said it will get air in it, but all you have to do is cycle the lever, which makes sense because I've had my hydraulics off multiple times and I've never had that problem before. Well, I knew I'd make at least one mistake. So about a minute after taking this off, I grabbed the new one and put it on backward. You would think I just looked at it and would remember how it went on, but that's alright. Only cost me a minute to turn that back around. But it was obvious that the other cooling unit was not going to go over that one, so it definitely had to be flipped. Alright, so I've got all 4 nuts started back on here. I'm not going to tighten them up because it's always possible that I won't be able to get these hydraulic lines started with that already on there. But they're kind of a fixed line, and so it should line right up. So one of the lines is started. I kind of thought it might be something I had to fiddle with to get those started, but just be a little bit patient and they'll go on. Feels like the other one might be started. Nope. Felt the thread pop right there. Alright, so I got them both started on there. We should be almost done. Those were a little bit awkward because it's a hard line and you have a fixed point on that cooler, and so it's hard to get the angle just right when they don't have much flexibility. But it's together now. I just got to tighten everything up. So as far as crescent wrenches, I worked on machinery in a factory for quite a few years, and I understand that the crescent wrench is not the right tool for most jobs. It leads to slipping and can round off whatever it is that you're working on. But this isn't something I'm going to take apart 50 times. And we just moved, so I don't know where my larger wrenches are, and I'm just going to go with it. So tightening up these hydraulic lines right here was the last step of installing this cooler. Now I just have to hook up the battery. The ring terminal on the positive wire for that diverter pulled off when I was disconnecting the battery. I got to redo that real quick. And then we'll get to the second part of this video, which was the new attachment I ordered. But first thing is to make sure that this repair works. Get the grapple on, operate all the hydraulics, and make sure we're not still leaking. This time I'm going to put a piece of cardboard in front of that so I don't smack it with the wrench again. One tip on connecting a battery is you always want to put the positive terminal on first so you can't ground out if your wrench touches anything while putting that positive on. Alright, so I didn't notice any leaks, but the entire compartment in there is already wet with hydraulic fluid, so I might not have noticed it if it was a smaller leak. So I'm going to take a dry shop towel and lay in there while I cycle all the hydraulics again, including the third function. Alright, does not look like we were leaking. So I think that went pretty well. I did a couple silly little things that I could have done better and made that go quicker. But project's done, the tractor's up and going again. So I'm happy with it. That was about a $200 mistake, smacking that with that wrench. But like I said earlier, I was just grateful to be able to get the parts quickly because we need to move stuff with this tractor pretty much every day. The only thing left now is to clean up the mess in here so that when my crew comes in the morning, they don't have to clean up after me. I would say I never leave a mess for them like that, but they might say otherwise. Earlier I mentioned that we had a new attachment coming. So when I was shopping for this tractor, I had a long list of all the modifications I wanted done to the tractor and all the attachments that I wanted to buy with the tractor. It's really convenient to use the 0% financing option to wrap everything into one package and one payment and have less out of your pocket when you purchase the tractor. The only thing that I really wanted that I wasn't able to get with it is a stump grinder. This property has stumps everywhere that need to be removed. I've done a couple the hard way in previous videos. On the small ones, the Artilian stump bucket works great, but on the bigger ones, that's very time consuming. I've already dug one big one out with the backhoe, and that took me almost a whole day. And I've watched videos where people are burning stumps out and it takes them all day or multiple days. So I think a good stump grinder is a very handy feature. As soon as I get that stump grinder, which should be within the next week, I'm going to start going around and clearing all the stumps on my property. Then once I'm really comfortable with using it, then I'm going to start advertising that as a service I offered. I've already had one person reach out to me and ask me if I do stump grinding. So I don't think I'll have trouble finding the jobs to get that stump grinder to pay for itself. So when I got to the point that I decided I'm ready to buy a stump grinder, I started comparing brands. And pretty quickly one brand came to the top of the pile as far as customer service, product availability, where the is manufactured, how reliable it is, and I decided to go with Baumalight. Baumalight has two stump grinders that work on a tractor this size. The first is the 1P24. The 1P24 has a grinding wheel that is, I guess you would say, parallel to the rear axle, like this. It's a 24-inch cutting wheel, and you drive forward and backward across the stump to grind it out. Then they have the 3P24, which has the same 24-inch disc, but it's turned perpendicular to that axle. And it's got two hydraulic cylinders that allow the stump grinder to move with your hydraulic levers. So to use the unit, you let your 3-point all the way down where it's setting on the ground, and you set your emergency brake, take it out of gear, and get off the tractor and operate it from the side, and the unit moves across the tree stump. Another benefit of the 3P24 is that it's not direct drive, so it spins faster than the PTO, which gives it more power for grinding. So I decided that that was the unit for me. So it worked out that I just hooked up the Artilian diverter, which allows me to use my grapple off of the loader joystick, and that frees up both of my rear hydraulic ports. All I have to do to put that stump grinder on is switch from my hydraulic top link back to the standard top link, and then I've got both ports freed up and ready to go. So I'm really excited to get that stump grinder and start demonstrating it on the channel. I appreciate you taking time to watch this video. In a minute you'll see links to a couple more of our videos come on the screen right here, and I'll see you next time.